fantasy football is that nobody cares about your team. The guys talk about the blockbuster trades and contracts across the NFL this week and ask why the greats usually aren't great talent scouts. All that and more this week on Just Press Play.
The red wasp is after me. Pregnant ladies and little kids better get the hell out of the way because I am running. I'm like Forrest Gump, dude. I am running. So, who also got covered by Aretha Franklin in RSPECT. Find out what it means to me. I want you each to use ombudsman in a sentence next week. I got one for you. My name is Kevin, the official ombudsman of the Just Press Play podcast. You like apples?
All right, we are back. It is Labor Day weekend, L, and we just keep working. That's what we do. Well, some of us.
There's no days off.
Some of us.
Well, I guess that's true. When you hit retirement age, you spend a lot of time out on the river, but everybody else, we work over the holidays.
Yeah. So once again, Pops is one of his go-to quotes is the best ability is availability, and my man just hasn't been available twice in the past week. So, but he'll be back a little later this week. We're just giving him some crap. He's enjoying the Labor Day weekend, but
it's not even his fault. We're just giving him.
We want to give the people. We wanted to give y'all something. We don't have a full episode for you today, but there's just, John Gruden continued to give us stuff to talk about. He has decided to trade his best player. We'll get into the Khalil Mack stuff in a minute. And Khalil Mack,
and he cut the white tiger, by the way. Just little fun fact.
Oh yeah,
he cut the white tiger.
We got to get all in. It was the final cuts for all the NFL preseason, so some interesting things going on in the NFL. And then, as we mentioned, John Gruden being John Gruden. And then it's just Labor Day weekend, so football was on, and I was watching all kinds of college football. I know I did my fantasy football draft. I'm sure a lot of people all around, this is kind of a big weekend for fantasy drafts. Yeah. And I tell you what, the only thing better than watching football is winning money while you're watching football. And I would tell you who to bet on, but I don't really know that. But I do know where you should bet with. And where the podcast, the Just Press Play podcast, is brought to you by MyBookie.
MyBookie.
I'm telling you, it's the easiest place to go. You just put your money in and you just sign up, and you want, say you want to go with a parlay and you want to do 3 games, and you can just pull it up on your phone, and there's just MyBookie.ag, and that's spelled BOOKIE. Okay. And you can just right before the game start, you kind of go, I kind of like the Alabama Louisville. I think Alabama's going to kill them. And then it's that easy. You throw $20 on it and they'll show you the line. And if you want to parlay it with some other stuff, it's just so easy. They have fantasy stuff too. If you're gonna gamble this year and win some money on football, you got to do it at MyBookie. There's just no.
So it sounds like to me you're saying that it is as easy as a vending machine. Like the only difficult thing is picking what you want, but instead of Cheetos, you might get a lot of cash. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's it. It's nothing. You just and there's nothing more enjoyable. So I was sitting there watching the Washington Auburn game, and I didn't really have a dog in the fight. I kind of was rooting for Auburn a little bit just because it'll look better if they have big wins when and if Arkansas can beat them, as a fan. Sure. But it was so much more fun to watch because the game was I think a 6-point game towards the end, and the line was 4.5 or 5.5. So it was fun as hell to watch. And when I ended up winning some money, I lost more this weekend than I won, but you do it at MyBookie. That's the place to go. But
all right,
let's go ahead. And so that kind of can get us into best and worst of the week. Is my best is I think Labor Day weekend may be my favorite weekend.
Yeah.
And I say that I don't think it's my favorite weekend as in things to do necessarily, what I did this weekend. It was a fun weekend, but it's like the beginning of, it's just a good time coming up. It's the end of summer. The weather's about to start getting better. The leaves are going to change. It's going to get nice. Football's going to be on.
You're exactly right. Basically September marks the weather's about to get good for a little bit. Maybe not a long time, but a little bit. Everything's going to be perfect. And,
for the next 30 days to 2 months, it's just going to be nice. And I think this weekend is kind of me gearing up for, okay, here we go. This is the end of the year. And then it rolls right into, then you got Thanksgiving, which is one of the best holidays. Then Christmas right after. It's just a good time coming up.
Yeah. New Year's. It just keeps rolling until the bottom falls out. It's basically, that's how the year goes.
So that my best is just Labor Day weekend. That's my best. What do you got? What do you got this weekend?
Well, okay. So the University of Maryland, did you see what they did this week?
Yes, I did. I saw some of it. Well, one, I saw they beat Texas, which is always fun when Texas loses. But
that's terrific. But that's not my best, though.
Right. So what were you going to talk about?
My best is that former University of Maryland guard Jordan McNair passed away this past summer, and it was a really tragic story. And if you didn't hear about it, well, there's a lot to unpack there. So it's a very controversial story. But what happened this weekend was not controversial, in my opinion. It was terrific. It was a great tribute. So they lined up with just 10 players on the field out of the required 11 and left the guard empty in honor of him. And then instead of calling a play, they just took the delay of game penalty. So they just moved back 5 yards for the tribute that they made to a fallen friend and comrade. And then Texas declined the penalty in another just spectacularly classy act. And so I just thought that was really special. I thought that was a really cool thing for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool thing to do. And Texas could have easily just accepted the penalty and, take the 5 yards, and Maryland would have been fine with it. They were gonna say it's worth. I mean,
yeah,
it was worth.
That's why they did it, is they knew what they were giving up. They were giving up 5 yards for this penalty. And, that's not much to give, but they didn't even have to, because Texas made a great move, a really honorable move to respond to it. So
it was classy all around. And I agree. That was a cool moment. That was like one of the first games of the day on Saturday. And that was just a cool way to start up the Saturday. I was like, that's out of all the ways this situation, and like you said, LJ, it's a lot to unpack, so we're not going to get into it now, but out of all the ways this situation's been mishandled, that was handled right on Saturday. And it was a touching moment. It was cool.
Agreed.
I want to go for my worst. I wanted to go a little bit on, I'll stay with coaches. I don't know. I don't think you told me you didn't get to watch a lot of it, but yesterday, last night on Saturday, Alabama played Louisville, and they just demolished Louisville. And
wow, surprising.
Yeah. Surprise. Alabama's good again. Whoa. Shocker.
Yeah.
But and as many know, I'm sure you're aware of this, there's a little bit of quarterback controversy going on with Jalen Hurts and Tua. I'm not going to say his last name because it's a little hard for me to say. But
sure.
Tua's probably the better quarterback, but Jalen Hurts has lost one game in his entire career, so it's hard to say to bench him. But so the whole story all offseason has been, what's Nick Saban going to do? Is he going to start Tua? Is he going to start Jalen Hurts? And he came in, he wouldn't label one the starter. He said they're co-starters, and he kind of did what a lot of college teams do, and they play both back and forth. And after the game, Maria Taylor, who covers the game or covers college football, she's like one of the sideline reporters for ESPN. She went up to Nick Saban and she asked the question that everyone wants to know, just to get a little more insight on, what do you think about the quarterback situation after this game? And here was Nick Saban's response.
What answers did you have about your quarterbacks after watching both of them play tonight?
Well, I still like both guys. I think both guys are good players. I think both guys can help our team. All right, so why do you continually try to get me to say something that doesn't respect one of them? I'm not going to. So quit asking.
I hear you.
Like, why does he have to be such an ass?
Yeah. They're just asking, do you have an official starter? That's all they're asking. It reminds me of the classic Oscar quote in The Office where he's like, when was the last time you saw a nation without two presidents? When was the last time you saw a ship set sail without two captains? It's a fair question, man. Chill out.
It's a perfectly reasonable thing. And Saban responded like she asked him to choose between like which child he wanted to keep or something. And he could have just done, and he started it. He started to say it, and he could have just went with it like, oh, I really like what both of them bring to the team. It's good to have two really good quarterbacks, and I'm going for, he could have gave us nothing, but instead he had to be kind of an ass about it. No kind of to it. A total ass about it. And later ESPN confirmed that Saban reached out and called Maria Taylor and apologized, and that he didn't mean to come off that way. He just has been asked that question, blah, blah, blah. But just handle yourself better, Nick. Come on.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's my worst of the week. Then I wanted to go, it wasn't going to be my worst, but I did want to mention it just so we did mention this past weekend was a lot of people either drafted this weekend or drafted like last week. There's a lot of fantasy football drafts going on. And I'm just going to say,
I think you might be taking my worst.
I'm just going to say, don't be that guy that shows up to work and talks about your fantasy football team.
Yep. Okay. Then let me rethink my worst, because my worst might have been Jerick McKinnon.
let me hear your worst. Let me hear your worst.
Well, I picked Jerick McKinnon earlier in the third round, and I was pretty excited about it, having Goat Garoppolo's, running back. I'd see good things in San Francisco. And so I'm going to talk about my team for a second. he got hurt. I thought, oh no, he got hurt on a non-contact injury. That's always good news. And then the news dropped that he tore his ACL. And so then the great news is someone in the league brought this to everybody's attention. So then I overbid for all of his backups. I spent like a good quarter of, or well, I guess like an eighth of my budget on picking up his backups when nobody else bid on him, because I thought, oh, well, this is big news now. Someone might be able to swipe a starting running back for free. So I got to pay a little more. Yeah. So that's my worst. And you can get back to your not worst, but kind of worst.
Well, so actually,
I'm that guy.
No, actually, see, you're not that guy, because that's different. I mean, specifically, the person that's the worst is like, as soon as, like, you know, the normal, typical Monday, you get to work and it's kind of like, oh, how was your weekend? And you say it was good. And like, I might go, oh yeah, I went home. We did our big fantasy draft. A bunch of my buddies got together. It was fun. That's fine. Yeah. All well and good. And you can even mention, you know, like, oh, I took Jerick McKinnon. And then I saw like an hour later that he tore his ACL. But it's the person that goes, here's my roster. And they pull up their phone and go, what do you think? And like, they pull out their roster and they want to talk about where stuff went in draft. And like, no one likes your fantasy team as much as you.
In the fourth round. Yeah. You should see who I got in the fourth round. Yeah, great. Cool. I don't care. I don't care. Especially if I'm not in your league. Like, I already don't care if anyone in the league that I'm in wants to talk about it, but even more so, I don't care. I only care about my team, and I will talk about my team all day. But
and it's easy. It's easy.
I don't care about yours.
When you're the one talking about it, you are interested. It's your team, and like you said, I care about my team. I do want to talk about it, but just know that no one else cares about your team, especially if they're not even in that league. Like, they have no reason to care. Yeah. So
no doubt.
Just I want people to. I'm trying to warn it. You don't want to end up, because you don't realize you're that guy until you are that guy. So I'm trying to give you a heads up. Just don't be him. Just don't be him.
Yeah. You know, okay, so maybe the rule here is if you think this is a story worth telling in 3 years, you can go ahead and tell it. But like, you're not going to talk about who you got in the fourth round of the 2018 draft in 3 years.
Right.
But you might talk about the fact that you traded Jamal Charles for Rob Gronkowski and sat through a whole year of watching Gronkowski go off on everybody once he got back from his injury. That, I think, might be a story worth telling. But
who you got in the fourth round over the fifth round is no, I'm good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you real quick, as an etiquette thing, like a fantasy draft etiquette, since you brought up the Jerick McKinnon thing, I'll just real quick lay it out for anyone that didn't see. Saturday at a team workout, he non-contact injury tore his ACL. He's the starting running back, or expected to be the starting running back for the 49ers, who many expect that offense with Jimmy G and Shanahan. It's going to be you would think it's going to be a productive offense. So McKinnon was a guy that a lot of people liked in fantasy football. And so that happens on Saturday. I think I get a notification from like ESPN Saturday around like 1 or something. And our draft was later that day. Yeah. Do you specifically try not to say anything to anyone, or are you a good person and you go, oh, did y'all see the Jerick McKinnon thing? Just to make sure like not like 6 people know, you know, is there an etiquette thing?
Yeah, I would say, okay, so if there's money on the league, then tell no one, say nothing. There's no reason to be nice.
You take any advantage you can.
Yeah, exactly. But I think if there's no money in the league, like the league that you and I are in with a lot of, you know, friends and stuff like that, it's totally okay to throw out for, like, you know, let's just assume Josh doesn't listen or doesn't pay attention to sports news, which I know he does. He pays way too much attention, but let's assume he doesn't. If he messes up the pick because he didn't know that Jerick McKinnon got hurt, then it's all fun to make fun of him. This league is about fun. So, you know, like, why kill a fun moment? Yeah. But,
because it was interesting. We were sitting there, and someone brought it up, I think, during the day on Saturday. Someone was just like, oh man, that Jerick McKinnon stuff sucks. It sucks to see that he tore his ACL, not even like in a game.
Yeah.
And like, I forget who it was. And I think it was Cody, and he probably would have figured out at some point, because that was like 3 hours before the draft. And he was like, oh wow, I'm glad y'all said that, because I really like Jerick McKinnon. So I just thought there's no other, especially in a league like ours where it's competitive, and we're not like, I'm sure not everyone's wired into it, but we don't want to make terrible picks. Like, there's money involved. Plus, it's more about just the talking crap to each other than the money, I think. But
yeah. Well, that's the thing is, like, the money, like, it can be as low as $5, but it needs to be a competitive. Yeah.
It would just suck to be the guy it would suck to be the guy that took Jerick McKinnon when everyone else knew that he had a torn ACL. It'd be fun to make fun of that person, but boy, it would suck to be that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go ahead. The NFL starts on Thursday, and to kick off the opening week. So we had a lot of cuts by NFL teams. Some notable guys like Dallas cut Dan Bailey, he's the most accurate kicker in NFL history, and they cut him. That was weird to see. Maybe,
did you see that coming at all? Was that a total shock to you?
No. Like, he had some injury stuff last year a little bit, but I thought he was healthy.
Yeah.
And I know they brought in a rookie kicker this year, a young guy, and they were just trying him out in preseason. But I think a lot of NFL teams will bring in a kicker just to get a look at him. So like maybe, week 6, if their kicker goes down, there's a young guy on the street that they like,
Yeah.
So I had no idea when that thing came through on my phone. I was like, damn, Bailey, I thought it was like a typo. And I went and Googled it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it had cut. But so the guy I want to bring up, we've mentioned him a few times. The $100 million man over in Oakland, he decided that the best thing to do for the Raiders would be to trade the best player on their team. Maybe the best defensive player in the division. He decided to give him away.
I mean, I do take a little bit of offense to what you just said, but I also agree with John Gruden. That is the best thing to do with the Raiders. I think that the next best thing he can do is get rid of Carr too. That would be lovely. Or maybe just what's that guard's name, Osawale or whatever.
Yeah,
maybe get rid of him and leave Carr. I think that's going to be okay too. Either way, just to free up cap space is all I'm saying.
So what we're referring to is the Raiders traded on I think it was Saturday. They traded Khalil Mack, who's been in a little bit of a contract holdout because he's on the last year of his rookie deal and he's ready to get paid like he deserves to be. He's one of
deserves it.
If not the best defense player, he's one of the top 5. I mean, he's really good, and he plays an extremely important position as that edge rusher.
Yep.
And so he wanted, and so he was ready to get his money. Yeah. So he was ready to get his money.
Yeah.
And he was holding out. And like the Raiders have been kind of threatening, like, oh, we're not talking to him. We've already given an offer and he didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. But you hear that all the time. And usually what ends up happening is like closer to the season, they come back and they figure something out. And nope, not the Raiders. They traded him for 2 first-round picks. And I wanted to get with you. My thought process.
I want to also throw out, Kevin, they threw with Khalil Mack a second-round pick. So they didn't just get picks for Khalil Mack. They also gave away a pick for it. So that's interesting. You can, whatever you were going to say next.
It was kind
I
of,
just found that interesting.
I was having this conversation with a couple of buddies this weekend, but I just think I understand a first-round pick's really good. And I think you have more on this. But if I'm any team in the NFL and you say you can have Khalil Mack, I just need 2 first-round picks, I think I'm doing that without a lot of hesitation. I understand that. Yeah. So what the Bears are the ones that traded for him, and what the Bears, the thought process is, you're not only giving up 2 first-round picks, but you're also basically, if you're going to trade for him, you're knowing that you're going to give him, like the Bears gave him a huge contract. I think Aaron Donald became the highest paid defensive player for a total of like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then
I think it was 2 days, but it was like nothing. Yeah.
And then Khalil Mack came in. I don't know the exact number, but I think his average is like $23.5 million per year for a defensive player. Do you have the raw numbers?
Well, the raw numbers, it's a 6-year extension. So he's got a 7-year contract worth $141 million. So he walked out the door with $60 million yesterday, and he's guaranteed $90 million of the $141 million. And if he stays all 7 years, then he gets about $23 million a year, like you were saying. I mean, it's, in chunks. So like $18 million the first year and like $26 million the next and stuff like that. So, it's a crazy contract.
Money keeps going up, and guys are going to keep getting paid more and more because the salary cap in the NFL has jumped up by like the calorie cap.
Yeah, I need a calorie cap.
The salary cap in the NFL has jumped up by like 10 million the past 5 years in a row. So it's going to keep going up. So these guys, the money just keeps getting higher. It's basically the highest paid player ends up being the one that got paid the latest. Like
whoever signed most recently.
It was Von Miller, then it was Aaron Donald, then it's Khalil Mack. It always goes. But why? Yeah. Do you, if you're the Raiders or if you're the Bears, do you think 2 first-round picks, do we overvalue first-round picks?
Yes, absolutely we do. In my opinion, I'm curious. I think let's take this a slightly different way. Who do you think won that trade? I mean, is that?
I think the Bears won it, no doubt, to me. And
I think I could argue. I think I agree with you, but I think I could argue that the Raiders might have won it. Though.
Okay, tell me why.
After I did a lot of research. Well, so I was trying to look up essentially like how useful a round 1 pick is. And it looks like basically a round 1 pick has a 40% chance of being a Pro Bowler. And so if you have 3 picks in the first round over the next 3 years, like the Raiders do, that means they've got about an 80% chance at drafting a Pro Bowler. So they got rid of Khalil Mack for upping those chances of getting a Pro Bowler to basically double what they had before. The other thing is Khalil Mack is costing on average against the cap $22 million.
Okay.
And so those 3 potential Pro Bowlers are probably at worst, if the Raiders get the number 1 pick and the number 2 pick, and then the next year, the number 1 pick, they're costing about $18 million in cap room. So they're saving $4 million and getting 3 people to fill holes. It kind of goes into one of those things you were talking about, Kevin, about how if a team gets good players under cheap contracts, that's how a team wins a Super Bowl. It's not about having the high paid all-star. You know, like how many quarterbacks besides Tom Brady are not on their rookie contract and really having a good push at the Super Bowl? It doesn't feel like a lot to me.
I agree with a lot of that. And I do think one thing, it's interesting now, I think first round picks, the problem is I think their value went way up in 2011 when they implemented the rookie wage scale. And now all of a sudden, Sam Bradford's aren't coming. It was actually funny when I think it was Parcells. I watched this documentary. It's this thing the Cowboys put out, like the last ride, and it was Parcells' last little tenure at the Cowboys. And at one point, he talks about first round picks, and it was interesting. At one time, owners and GMs and coaches didn't really want the number 1 overall pick because, I mean, you're locking down $70 million to Sam Bradford, who may be really good or he may be a dud. And now with first round picks getting 5 years at, whatever million, I get slotted for each pick. The value should have and did rise, but I think it went too high because it just seems like you said 40%. I mean, I was going to just give a rough guess at like you have maybe a 50% chance if that pick ends up being top 10. You have a 50% chance if that guy could be Khalil Mack or he could be a total dud. But Khalil Mack, we know what Khalil Mack is. He's a stud.
And I will say that 40% chance is not will you get a Khalil Mack, but it's will you get a Pro Bowler. And I would say Khalil Mack is better than the middle tier Pro Bowler.
And do we trust Gruden to be the guy to get that pick, like make that pick?
No, absolutely not. But here's the other thing, though, that I think a really smart team, which I don't think the Raiders are, could turn those picks into actual just straight up a destructive team in say 8 years, right? Because, if you have a team that's really in for the long haul, which the Raiders are, they've signed to a 10-year contract. They're going to pay him for 10 years no matter what they do. Yeah. So they're going to keep him around for a little while. There's no doubt about it. And so what I would do if I were in that situation is I would trade down those picks and try to double my picks in the second round or something like that. And then trade down those picks and try to get just as many mid-round picks as you can, because the difference between potential in a first round pick in the middle round or in the middle of the round and a third round pick in the middle of the round is like almost nothing. They're all good players with a lot of potential that we just have to see how they perform in an NFL environment. And so if you can have just like a shotgun mindset during the draft and just have like, instead of 7 picks, have, 25.
Well, I mean,
you're going to get a lot of good players for cheap.
You're talking about what the Browns have done. That's what they did when they traded down. They didn't take Deshaun Watson. They traded down, or they didn't take Wentz and all of them because they thought, we'll just trade down. We'll go ahead and get more second round and first round picks coming up. They won't be the first pick, but we'll end up getting a lot of talent. And they've got a ton of talent, and I really like their roster. And now they might have the quarterback they want. But I want to go back to who won or lost the trade. And I get why you could say maybe Oakland, but I love, and you mentioned it, the Bears did what we've talked about in previous podcasts, and they're just they've seen enough Mitch Trubisky where they're saying, all right, because we've talked about when that window's open, as soon as it opens, it's closing. Yeah. So they have, I think, 4 years while Mitch Trubisky's on that rookie deal. So they're just going to go, right now they have the money to go pay Khalil Mack. Once Mitch Trubisky's up, and if he is their guy, then they're going to have to pay him. They don't have the money for Khalil Mack, and Khalil Mack's contract will be up, and then they might go away from him. Right. But so right now they're going to go with Trubisky. They signed a couple players on Allen Robinson on offense. They got Jordan Howard, who they like at running back, and then they drafted some good players on defense. Or at least if they trust their draft process, they drafted good players, and then they just bring it. They show everyone what they did is they showed everyone in their locker room, we're not building, we're ready. We're ready to we might take the step now, because they're like the Rams did last year, and the Raiders. On the other hand, are showing the exact opposite. If I'm Derek Carr or if I'm Marshawn Lynch, I'm like, what the hell? Like, you're getting rid of our best guy? And it didn't even seem like they really negotiated with them all that much. I think that's definitely the reason I would argue that they lost this trade is how does the locker room react to that? I mean, there's no way that you can tell teams that or players that you're going to get rewarded for working hard and having, a hell of a career in Oakland or in Las Vegas, I guess is the next step. Yeah. But
I mean, just to play devil's advocate, I mean, Khalil Mack is going to take up 1/8 of the Bear salary cap every year for the next 7 years. 1/8. He has 1/8 of their entire team. That's absurd.
He is a
That's
stud.
a
He's
big
an
contract
MVP
to try to
candidate.
perform up to. And if he gets hurt in a couple of years, well, I guess that probably negates the contract to some degree. I'm just saying, if he doesn't live up to that standard, then that's a huge waste of money. I mean, he is an MVP candidate every year for the next 5 years, and that wouldn't surprise me. But it also wouldn't surprise me if he starts drifting. Players do that. It just happens. That's just such a huge investment. 1/8 of your salary goes to one person.
With every first round pick, you're praying. You're just praying that one of them can maybe one can turn into a Khalil Mack. So now you're not having to pray for it. You got it. You got Khalil Mack in the building now. And I get what you're saying, and he is going to cost a lot, or he is costing a lot. But guys like Khalil Mack's talent don't become available in free agency. This isn't the NBA. NBA, like, those guys jump ship a lot. The NFL, guys at that talent don't become available. So when you got a chance at it, if you want one, you better go get them. And it costs 2 first-round picks, I guess.
Well, I will say the other thing is, like you're saying, they're going all in right now. Just putting all the chips on the table. And if they can parlay that into a Super Bowl within the next couple of years, it's a lot easier to come talk to your star player and say, hey, will you take a little bit less money so we can sign and get more talent around you to keep this going, than it is for the Raiders to say, hey, we're on our way to the Super Bowl. You don't have any proof that it's going to happen. You may not have even met our head coach, but would you still take a pay cut for us to try to get pieces around you? Like, it's a lot easier to trust a team that has gone all in and succeeded. So if they're gambling and it works out, then it works out big, I think, because then they have that opportunity to say, hey, let's cut your contract a little bit so I can get you some more outside linebacker help on the other side, or something like that,
Yeah, and I guess I'll kind of wrap up my thoughts on this point is just, and we don't know what the locker room's like. We have fun with the John Gruden stuff, and a lot of people do, but maybe the team loves him. Maybe everybody's all on board, and they kind of wanted to get rid of Khalil Mack, and he was kind of a nuisance in the locker room. We don't know. But it just seems like as soon as John Gruden got there, he alienated 2 of the team's best players in Marquette King, which I know it's a punter, so you would say he's not as important, but
right, not as valuable for sure.
But two guys that seemed like they were kind of the leaders on the team a little bit, like guys that people liked and fans definitely
at
liked.
least emotional centers,
yeah. And the Marquette King thing, it sounded like he didn't even talk to him. And then there was reports came out after John Gruden had been with the team for a month, and Khalil Mack kind of said he's going to hold. He's been wanting to renegotiate, and that now he's going to hold out. The report came out that John Gruden hadn't even talked to him. So
I read a report today, and that might be false, but it said that Gruden still hasn't talked to him, and Khalil Mack was actually trying to find John Gruden's house address by texting people that are close to him so he could have a meeting with coach, and couldn't get it. So
it just I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Well, and if you're Derek Carr looking at so what's my next contract going to be? You look at this front office and say, I don't know if I want to be here. I mean, I think. So I think that's why they lost it.
It does more so than other than Derek Carr. I think the Raiders pretty much just showed that we'll pay a quarterback, and that's it. Because they paid Derek Carr.
True.
Everyone
That's
else,
true.
You're expendable. And I'm with you. I think if I'm Arden Key is the guy they drafted out of LSU, who they think maybe can fill in for Khalil Mack and be the next Khalil Mack, and maybe he will. And if he does, he's a much cheaper version. So maybe they look really smart. But if you're Khalil Mack and you ball out, or I mean, if you're Arden Key and you're great for the next 3 years, do I try to? You just watch what happened to the last guy. So maybe I'm all right, I've done my stint here. Now let me go get paid by an owner that actually wants me. I don't know. I just feel like it's an easy way. I could see that locker room after what's gone on in this offseason. If things kind of are a rough start to the regular season, I could see that blowing up. And like you said, the Raiders are all in. By going 10 years, $100 million, they're all in on the John Gruden train. So we'll see. We're either going to see it win a Super Bowl or crash and burn. One of the two.
I want to throw out one more thing about the Raiders is that I was looking at some stuff today, and last year the Raiders led the league in players over 30 years old, and really stood out by having 8 players over 30 years old. And then they went and signed, I think, 4 more this year. So the Raiders are going to be by far the oldest team in football this coming year.
And John Gruden's, he said he wants to go back to 1998. So, I mean, he's working on it.
And he wants to get people that saw it. So, yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm not ready, Kev, to if the Raiders have a good season this season, I'm not ready to eat this crow. I'm just not. I just cannot have that happen.
It will be great.
No.
It will be great to see you like week 10.
No.
If the Raiders are like 8-2 and Derek Carr's an MVP candidate and John Gruden is coach of the year and you're just having to eat all kinds of crow.
I was aware this week while I was thinking about how big of a deal this Khalil Mack trade is and how they got rid of Martavis Bryant. I was just thinking there's no, if they find success this year or even in the next like 3 years, I am going to look so dumb. Like I will. Yeah, that's going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
Well, speaking of how valuable, what a first round pick, the value of first round pick, I guess the Paxton Lynch made the roster for Denver. The worst first round pick I've seen.
He didn't make the roster as far as I saw.
I thought he made the cuts.
I want to. Well, let me look to make sure. But I thought I saw today that he was cut. Let me see. They waive him.
Yep, he's been cut. You're right.
And Broncos. The report from the Mile High Report is the Broncos tried to trade him and no one wanted him.
I bet they didn't.
I mean,
the Broncos
I will
did
say,
the Cowboys a huge. Jerry Jones really wanted Paxton Lynch, and the Broncos did us a favor by taking him because.
And you know what? I did too. I was really excited about that pick. I think I was there when they picked him in I think it was while I was in the Chicago draft. And, I was pumped about that. I just thought, wow, I couldn't be happier about, we're really answering our quarterback problem with this. And,
do we know does John Elway know how to evaluate the quarterback position? Because have you seen what he's done?
It has not been
besides
good.
Peyton Manning, it's not been very good at all.
And that's one of the things that Hannah and I were just talking about this the other day of like, do you think Peyton Manning would make a good coach? Especially a quarterback's coach. And I think like, it's hard to say because like one of those things about these like all-time greats, like, the John Elways, the Dan Marinos, the whoever's,
heck, Michael Jordan in basketball, he's not been very good at it.
Well, you know so much that you don't know what you can't tell people. It's just like you're so far beyond people that like trying to explain what you go through and what you look at before an audible for if you're Peyton Manning or, like what you're like John Elway may or may not know how physically blessed he was to be able to do the things he could do and how lucky he was to be able to read a play so much faster. So you just can't
understand why Paxton Lynch can't do it.
Right. He thinks, oh, I know everything there is to know about quarterbacking, so I can get somebody somewhere or I could figure out who's going to be the guy or whatever. I can see those things. But all he sees is like maybe the things he didn't have that this guy's better than him at and doesn't see all of the things that he just took for granted because, that's what almost makes like you see like those big old coaches that never played a sport in their life, but they're still like genius coaches. It's a stereotype for a reason.
Because they had the limitations. They had the limitations and they understand it. Whereas John Elway he can't relate to a mid-level quarterback because he was never that. His whole life, he was the best that ever touched the field.
I mean, he was, the draft that he was in, it was such a clear, like this is the number one pick that, he's never had a day where he wasn't the best quarterback in the nation as far as at least his circle thought. It's crazy. And I will say like, I've loved him as an owner, but you're exactly right. Quarterbacks have not been something that he's been able to put together. And I think that's
maybe with Case Keenum, he did. I don't know. We'll see. But
and maybe he just needs to stick to free agents that find some success. Like that might be the quarterback of the Broncos from here on out is just, we pick up somebody that doesn't quite make it on a team, but looks good. I don't know. We'll see.
Because I feel like they've drafted well other than quarterback. Like they've gotten good. I think they have some really good edge rushers. I think they've done some good things like signing different players. Yeah. All right. So. Well, so we didn't have, like we said, we didn't have a full episode for you this week. We had to come on and I had to at least get your thoughts on the Khalil Mack thing.
For sure.
And since he got traded to Chicago, you were in Chicago. I thought I had to at least see what you were thinking.
Can I say I think that's a scary team this year? I do.
I'm very intrigued by them. I think I like what they're doing. They're going all in. They could be the next kind of Rams-ish team, and they're just going because either they crash and burn. Like they by taking Mitch Trubisky that early, you're going all in on them. Yeah. So might as well get the best team you can around them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it sucks, it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, they're not Brown scary, I don't think, but they're scary.
No, but they're getting there. They've signed some playmakers. If Trubisky is as good as they want him to be, they have some running backs with Howard and Tariq Cohen, and then
I like them.
I love the linebacker they got out of Georgia, and then obviously Khalil Mack's a stud.
Oh yeah, they got Khalil Mack too. Huh?
Yeah, they're intriguing. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But so we mentioned it earlier, and if you're gonna be betting at all during football season, you got to be doing it at MyBookie. And actually, since MyBookie is are a sponsor of the JPP podcast, you can go on there. They will put in, for any of our listeners, if you go on MyBookie today or before football season, anytime, and you put in the promo code JPP, they'll match whatever. So if you put $100 in to play with, they'll match it and give you $100 too. Or if you they'll go all the way up to 1,000, and you can bet on.
What if I put $300 in?
They'll match it. I'm telling you, you can bet on college football, pro football, basketball, any sports. They even have like random stuff where you can bet on like reality TV shows. Like at one point, I know they had stuff for The Bachelor and things like that. And then for all you like, for all our fellow fantasy nerds out there, if you want to get into some like DFS stuff, they'll put like Mitch Trubisky is that we have him projected at 12 points this week. Do you have him over or under? And you can pick the over under and you can parlay it. It's just a lot of fun stuff. That. Easy as hell to use. Just go to MyBookie.ag. That's MyBookie. And like I said, enter that promo code JPP. All of our listeners, they'll match your money. So they'll match that deposit.
It's just free money.
Yeah. You look, the thing is I don't know who to bet on, but I just know who to bet with, and it's MyBookie. You play, you win, and they pay. It's that easy. Might as well do it.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
For that, I think that'll wrap it up. LJ, we got some football coming. Thursday night, the NFL is officially back. Regular season's back on.
Pumped.
I mean, it's a good time of the year. Like we said, I'm telling you, Labor Day weekend. I get so pumped because like now it's all downhill from here.
Yeah, in like a positive way.
Yeah, and then we got Pops will be back a little later this week. We'll have another.
Yeah, missed you, Pops, on this
pod.
One.
Yeah, we missed you. Hit the best abilities availability, and you ain't here. So, but I think we're gonna table what we're listening to until Pops comes back. So I think for this week's episode, that'll do it. All John right. Gruden, keep putting out some news for us, John.
Keep it happening. Oh yeah.
Peace out.
Peace. So, Dad, will you clap when I reach a number less than 1? And I'm gonna count down from 3. 3, 2, 1.
I will.
0.
Okay.
You said I will after I said 0.
About 3 seconds.
So that's I think we're pretty far off.
I mean, have you not heard the clap yet?
No, I mean, well, we've heard it now, but it was a good like 4 seconds or so, I think. Yeah.
3 or 4.
Okay. Well, what are you guys thinking?
I
do too.
Right on.